The evening rain came down in sheets, washing the city streets in silver light. Cars sped by, splashing water over sidewalks where few dared to walk. A small figure stood at one corner, her shoulders trembling beneath a soaked gray hoodie. In her hands, a torn plastic bag, holding nothing but a crust of bread she'd found in a bin. Her name was Lily, and she hadn't eaten properly in 2 days. Her lips moved, whispering something too soft for the world to hear. Please, just a little help. The lights from the tall buildings above flickered like stars, unreachable and cold. Somewhere, laughter echoed from a restaurant, the kind of sound that felt like another universe to someone like her. She looked up at a large white mansion at the end of the street. Its windows glowed warm and golden, a sharp contrast to the storm. Gathering courage, Lily walked toward the gate. Her shoes squished with every step, leaving muddy prints on the marble pathway. She hesitated, staring at the door, tall, wooden, carved with symbols she didn't understand. She lifted her hand and knocked. Once, twice, a few seconds passed. Then the door creaked open. Standing there was Michael, a man in his early 50s, wearing a black suit even though it was past midnight. His expression was distant, the kind of man who'd forgotten what struggle felt like. Yes? He asked sharply. Lily swallowed hard. I am sorry to bother you, sir. I just need something to eat. For a moment, silence filled the space between them. The storm outside screamed against the walls, yet inside, time seemed to pause. Michael's brows furrowed. He'd seen beggars before. He usually gave them cash to make them leave faster. But something about her voice, the tremble, the desperation, made him stop. He turned away, ready to call his butler. But then Lily's cough broke the air, harsh, dry, and painful. She looked like she could collapse any second. Without knowing why, Michael said softly, "Wait here." He disappeared inside. Lily stood on the doorstep, dripping and shivering. The smell of warm bread wafted from somewhere inside the mansion. When Michael returned, he held a tray with soup and a piece of bread, the kind that steamed with comfort. "Eat this, then leave," he said. Lily took it with shaking hands. "Thank you, sir. I'll never forget." He cut her off, closing the door halfway. "Don't thank me. I'm just helping because I can." She nodded and sat on the steps, sipping the soup. Every drop felt like life returning to her veins. As she ate, she looked at the grand house again, wondering how it must feel to belong somewhere warm. Inside, Michael walked to his office. Something about the girl lingered in his mind. Her eyes. They were hauntingly familiar, a shade of hazel he hadn't seen in years. He brushed the thought aside, convincing himself it was coincidence. But deep inside, a quiet ache stirred. Outside, the rain slowed. Lily curled up near the pillar, holding the empty bowl close to her chest as if it were treasure. For the first time in a long while, she whispered, "Thank you, God." And inside, behind glass walls and wealth, a man sat staring at the storm, unaware that fate had just knocked on his door. Before we go deeper into this story, tell me, where in the world are you watching from? It always amazes me how far a single story can travel. Drop your city in the comments. Let's see how wide kindness still spreads. The night grew quiet after the rain, leaving only the soft hum of the streetlights and the occasional rumble of distant thunder. Lily sat there, half asleep against the marble pillar. Her clothes clung to her skin, cold and damp, but the warmth of that soup still lingered inside her. For the first time in weeks, her stomach wasn't twisting in hunger. Inside the mansion, Michael couldn't sleep. He sat in his study, the amber light of a desk lamp highlighting the sharp lines of his tired face. He'd spent most of his life surrounded by numbers, contracts, and polished words that meant nothing outside of business. But that girl, her trembling hands, her voice, kept replaying in his mind. He told himself it was pity, but it didn't feel like pity. It felt like memory. Around 3 a.m., he walked toward the door again. Through the glass, he saw her, still there, curled up on the step like a stray kitten. Something inside him broke. With a sigh, he opened the door quietly. "Hey!" he whispered. Lily stirred awake, blinking up at him in confusion. I am sorry. I didn't mean to. I'll go." "No," he interrupted softly. "You'll catch a fever out here. Come inside, just for tonight. Her eyes widened. Really? He nodded, stepping aside. She hesitated. Years of rejection had taught her to be careful, but the exhaustion in her body won. She stepped in, clutching her torn bag tightly. The air inside smelled of cinnamon and rain-soaked wood. Marble floors reflected soft golden light from chandeliers above. Lily looked around, her eyes filled with wonder. It's beautiful. Michael's lips curved in a faint smile. You can rest on the couch. I'll get you a blanket. As she sat down, he returned with a thick blanket and a glass of warm milk. Hey, drink this. She hesitated before accepting. Why are you helping me, sir? People usually don't. He looked at her, really looked at her this time. Maybe because once, someone helped me when I didn't deserve it either. That line made her chest tighten. She smiled weakly. Then I'll never forget this day. Michael walked back to his study after she fell asleep. He stood by the window, looking at her reflection in the glass. The moonlight touched her face gently, and there it was again. Those eyes, that small scar near her eyebrow. A memory flashed, a little girl laughing in a sunlit garden, chasing butterflies, calling him daddy. His breath caught, and he shook his head quickly. No, that couldn't be. His daughter. His wife had told him she died years ago in that tragic accident. He'd buried her picture, her toys, and the part of himself that once believed in miracles. But that scar, that face, that voice. He closed his eyes, whispering to himself, it's just a coincidence. Morning came softly, with golden light filtering through the tall curtains. Lily awoke to the smell of coffee. She sat up, startled at first, until she remembered where she was. A folded note rested on the table beside her. Eat breakfast before you go. There's food in the kitchen. M. Her lips quivered into a small smile. She wandered toward the kitchen and gasped. On the counter sat toast, eggs, and a small paper bag with an apple inside, more food than she'd had in a week. Tears welled in her eyes. He didn't have to, she whispered. She ate slowly, savoring each bite, feeling warmth spread through her again. Before leaving, she cleaned her plate and left a small piece of paper beside it, a drawing of a bird, something she always drew when words failed her. Beneath it, she wrote, "Thank you for saving me last night. I'll remember this forever." As she walked out the door, the morning sun glinted off her wet hair. Michael saw her through the window, clutching her bag, stepping back into the world that never seemed to care, and his chest tightened with something he hadn't felt in years, guilt mixed with longing. He whispered to himself, "Who are you, really?" The city was alive again by the time Lily reached the main square. Vendors shouted over one another, buses honked impatiently, and people rushed past as if the world might end if they slowed down. She clutched the small paper bag Michael had given her like it was treasure. The apple inside was her last bit of hope for the day. She found a corner near an old bookstore where she often sat to rest. The owner, Mrs. Collins, a kind widow in her 60s, noticed her at once. "Lily, Day, you look better today," she said, smiling warmly from behind the counter. Lily nodded. "Someone helped me last night, Mrs. Collins. A man, a rich one, I think." Mrs. Collins raised an eyebrow. "Rich men don't usually open their doors in storms." "I know," Lily said softly, "but he did." Mrs. Collins placed a muffin on the counter and slid it toward her. "Eat this. You're too thin. You remind me of my daughter when she was your age." Lily smiled faintly. "Thank you. You always take care of me." The woman's voice softened. "I do what I can. But you, sweetheart, you need to think of a plan. Maybe find work. You're smart. I can see it in your eyes." Lily hesitated, biting her lip. "I want to. I really do. I just don't know where to start." Outside, clouds gathered again, but the storm this time seemed far away. The world felt lighter. For the first time in a while, Lily thought maybe, just maybe, things could get better. Meanwhile, in the mansion across town, Michael sat at his desk, unable to focus. The newspaper in front of him blurred as his mind replayed the same questions. That scar, that voice, that feeling in his chest when she looked at him. He tried to convince himself he was imagining things, but the truth gnawed at him. Finally, he picked up his phone and called someone he hadn't spoken to in years. "Grace," he said hesitantly when a voice answered. "It's Michael." A long pause followed. "Michael, it's been a long time." "I know. Listen, I need your help. You used to work at Satan's orphanage, right?" "Yes. Why?" "There's a girl, about 19, maybe 20. Name's Lily. Thin, brown hair, hazel eyes. Scar above her eyebrow." His voice faltered. "Can you check if she was ever there?" Grace hesitated. "Lily? Hazel eyes, you said?" "Yes. I remember someone like that. She came in when she was little. We thought she was lost, maybe from a car accident. She had no papers, no family name, just a bracelet with the letter M." Michael's heart skipped. His throat tightened. "A bracelet. M." "Yes," Grace confirmed gently. "She left when she turned 16. Wanted to find her family." "Why, Michael? What's wrong?" But he couldn't answer. He hung up, his hands trembling. That bracelet, he remembered buying it for his daughter on her 5th birthday. It had an engraved heart and the letter M for Melissa. His daughter, his Lily. He pushed his chair back, standing abruptly. The sound of his heartbeat filled the room. It can't be, but what if? He grabbed his coat and keys, determination replacing disbelief. If there was even a chance, he needed to know. He needed to see her again. Across town, Lily walked along the crowded market street. A man accidentally bumped into her, spilling his coffee on her sleeve. She quickly apologized, even though it wasn't her fault. He scowled and walked away without a word. She sighed, brushing off the stain, but then smiled at a child who dropped her balloon. "Here you go," Lily said, handing it back. The little girl beamed. "Thank you." Her mother smiled at Lily. "That's very kind of you." Lily shrugged softly. "We all need kindness, right?" The woman nodded, touched by her words. "Have you ever had someone help you when no one else would?" "Right, yes, and tell me their name. Maybe gratitude can travel further than we think." As the day faded into evening, Lily returned to the same corner by the bookstore, unaware that a sleek black car had just stopped a few blocks away. Inside, Michael sat gripping the steering wheel, staring out at the street. His pulse raced as he spotted her, thin, tired, yet radiating a strange, fragile grace. He whispered under his breath, "My God, it's really her." Michael sat frozen in the driver's seat, the city's noise fading into nothing but the sound of his own heartbeat. The girl sitting by the bookstore, that fragile silhouette, the way she tucked her hair behind her ear, even the small tilt of her head, every movement mirrored his daughter's old habits. For years, he'd buried that image deep inside, believing it had vanished forever with the accident. But now, here she was. He stepped out of the car slowly, afraid that if he moved too quickly, the moment might disappear. The pavement was still slick from last night's rain, and his shoes splashed lightly as he walked closer. Lily noticed a figure approaching, but didn't look up right away. People rarely came near her except to throw coins or quick glances. "Lily," he said softly. Her head lifted instantly, confusion flickering in her eyes. "So," he swallowed. "It's me, Michael, from last night." A smile of recognition spread across her face. "Oh, I didn't think you'd remember me. Thank you again for helping me." Michael's voice trembled. "Can we talk? Somewhere quieter." She hesitated, glancing around nervously. I guess so." They sat at a nearby bench beneath a tree whose leaves dripped from the earlier rain. Michael watched her closely. The scar, the eyes, even the way she clasped her hands tightly when she was unsure. It was all too familiar. "Lily," he said carefully, "how long have you been on your own?" She shrugged lightly. "As long as I can remember. I grew up in an orphanage. I was in a car accident when I was little. They said no one claimed me. I tried finding where I came from, but there was nothing." Michael's throat went dry. "Did you have anything from that time? Something that belonged to you before?" She reached into a small torn bag and pulled out a silver bracelet, old, scratched, but with a tiny engraved letter M. "Just this, she said softly. I never take it off. I don't know what it means, but it makes me feel safe. Michael's world shattered and reformed in the same breath. His fingers trembled as he reached for the bracelet. Lily, that was mine. I gave it to my daughter when she turned 5. Her name was Melissa. Her breath caught. Melissa, she whispered. He nodded, eyes glistening. You were in the car with your mother that day. They told me you both didn't make it. Lily shook her head, her eyes filling with tears. I remember. Flashes. The sound of glass. Someone screaming. Then I woke up in a hospital. No one came. I thought maybe I wasn't wanted. Michael's hands covered his face as silent tears broke through years of control. God, I thought I lost you forever. The world around them disappeared. The noise, the traffic, the people. Just a father and daughter, lost and found in the middle of an ordinary street. Lily's lips quivered as she whispered, You're really my father? He nodded. And you're my little girl. They embraced, trembling, both crying softly, the kind of tears that heal as they fall. A passerby glanced at them, then smiled faintly without knowing why. It was a sight of something pure, love rediscovered after being buried under time and pain. After a while, Michael said, Come home with me, please. You'll never have to beg again. Not for food, not for warmth, not for love. Lily hesitated, looking at him through the blurred tears. I don't know if I belong in that world anymore. He smiled gently. You belong with me. Always have. She nodded slowly, her heart pounding with both fear and hope. As they walked back toward his car, the city lights flickered on, one by one, as if celebrating a reunion the world had almost forgotten. The streets that once felt cruel now seemed to glow softer around her. For the first time in years, Lily felt seen, not as a beggar, but as a daughter. Inside the car, silence hung heavy but warm. Michael glanced at her as he drove. You look so much like your mother, he whispered. Lily smiled faintly. Tell me about her. He did. He told her about Grace, gentle, kind, always painting by the window. He spoke of her laughter, how it filled every room. Lily listened, memorizing every word like it was a missing part of herself being returned. When they reached the mansion, she hesitated before stepping inside again. It didn't feel like a stranger's house anymore. It felt like a piece of her past quietly waiting for her to come home. Now it's your turn. Share one small good thing you did recently. Write it below so others remember that humanity still lives. Your story might light someone's path tonight. The mansion looked different this time. Not cold, not distant, but alive with echoes of something Lily had never felt before. Belonging. As she stepped through the doorway, her reflection shimmered faintly against the polished marble, like a shadow of the child she used to be. Michael followed closely behind, watching her with a mixture of awe and guilt. Everything's the same, he murmured, almost to himself, even after all these years. Lily turned, her voice soft. It's beautiful, but it feels like someone else's dream. He walked over to a photo frame that had been gathering dust on the piano. Inside was a picture of a little girl with the same hazel eyes and a wide grin. That's you, he said quietly. You loved sitting right there and pretending to play a song for your mother. Lily stepped closer, her eyes widening as she studied the image. That's me. He nodded. I never had the heart to take it down. Her hand trembled as she touched the glass. For a second, she imagined that smiling child speaking to her. You made it back home. Michael exhaled slowly, his voice breaking. I don't know how to make up for the years you lost. Lily, I can't fix a past. She looked at him with tears glistening in her eyes. You don't have to. You found me. That's enough. The two of them sat together in the living room, the crackling fireplace filling the silence. It wasn't awkward. It was tender, like two hearts remembering how to beat in rhythm again. Michael poured her some tea, his hands still slightly trembling. You know, he said with a small laugh, you used to sneak sugar cubes when you thought I wasn't looking. Lily smiled shyly. Maybe some habits never change. They both laughed, soft, uncertain laughter, but real. For the first time in years, there was warmth in that house again. Later that evening, as they sat at the dinner table, Michael noticed how she looked around. studying the chandelier, the long table, the neatly arranged silverware. She wasn't used to such things. She ate slowly, as if afraid to waste a single bite. "You don't need to hold back," he said gently. "Everything here is yours too." Her eyes flicked up, filled with gratitude and disbelief. "I'm just not used to this." He nodded. "You will be. You're home now." The word home echoed in her heart. She'd dreamed of hearing it, but it felt almost too good to believe. She remembered the night she'd slept under bridges, wishing for warmth like this. Yet now that she had it, a small voice in her head whispered, "What if it doesn't last?" After dinner, Michael led her upstairs. The hallway was lined with family photos, each one a window into a past she barely remembered. When they reached the door at the end, he paused. "This was your room," he said. Lily stepped inside slowly. The room smelled faintly of lavender and old paint. On the nightstand sat a dusty snow globe with a tiny ballerina inside. She picked it up, giving it a gentle shake. The snowflakes swirled around as if welcoming her back. Michael watched her, his chest tightening with a feeling he couldn't name. Pride, relief, redemption. Then, from the corner of the room, a faint chime played, the little music box her mother had bought. Lily turned toward it, tears welling up. "I remember this sound," she whispered. Michael smiled sadly. "Your mother used to play it every night until you fell asleep." Lily set the snow globe down and faced him, her voice trembling. "She's gone, isn't she?" He nodded, the pain flickering across his face like lightning. "Yes, but I see her in you every single moment." They stood there in silence, the air thick with grief and grace, the shared ache of everything lost and found again. Then, Lily stepped forward and hugged him tightly. Michael's arms wrapped around her as though he'd been waiting his whole life for this single embrace. Outside, rain began to fall again, gentle this time, not like the storm that had brought her to his door, but soft, forgiving rain. It pattered against the window like applause from the heavens. If that moment hit you hard, leave a red heart hash. Sometimes one little symbol says what our hearts can't. That night, sleep came slowly for both of them. Michael sat alone in his study long after the house went quiet, staring at the family photo on his desk, the one that used to hurt too much to look at. For years, he'd told himself he was a man who'd lost everything. But tonight, he realized the truth. He hadn't lost everything. He'd simply stopped looking for what was still out there. Upstairs, Lily lay awake, eyes tracing the patterns on the ceiling. The bed felt too soft, too foreign. She clutched the bracelet in her hand, as if it was still the only piece of her past she could trust. Around midnight, she heard soft footsteps. Michael appeared at the door, carrying 2 cups of tea. "Couldn't sleep either?" he asked gently. She smiled faintly. "I guess it's strange sleeping in a real bed again." He handed her the cup and sat beside her. The warm steam carried the faint scent of mint and honey. "When you were little," he said, "you used to sneak into our room after nightmares. You'd say you couldn't sleep unless I told you a story." Her lips curved in a sad smile. "Tell me one now." He hesitated, then began softly. "Once upon a time, there was a man who had everything, wealth, power, and respect. But one day, he lost what really mattered. And for years, he searched everywhere, only to realize that what he'd lost wasn't gone. It was waiting for him to open his door." Lily's eyes glistened. "I like that story." He smiled. "It's true." For a long while, they said nothing, just sat there, 2 souls trying to bridge a lifetime in a single night. Then Lily's voice trembled. "Why didn't you look for me, Dad?" The word Dad pierced through him like a quiet miracle. He swallowed hard. "I did, Lily. I searched for months after the crash. The report said there were no survivors. I wanted to believe they were wrong, but your mother's family begged me to let go. They said I was losing myself." He looked away, guilt flooding his face. "I gave up too soon." Lily reached for his hand. "You didn't know. You can't blame yourself forever." He turned toward her, eyes full of sorrow. "But I do. I failed you. You grew up hungry, cold, scared, while I sat in this house pretending I'd accepted fate. I was blind to the chance that you might still be out there, waiting for me." Tears filled her eyes, but she shook her head. "You didn't fail me. You saved me when you opened that door. Maybe that's how it was meant to happen. Michael looked at her, the faintest smile tugging at his lips. You sound like your mother. A soft silence followed, filled only by the rhythmic ticking of the clock. It wasn't the kind of silence that hurt. It was the kind that healed. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the windows. Lily walked out to the garden, barefoot, feeling the grass between her toes. The air smelled like roses and rain. Michael watched from the porch, leaning against the railing. You used to love chasing butterflies out there, he said. You'd come back covered in mud, but your mother never scolded you. She'd just laugh. Lily laughed too. I think I remember that. As she turned, she saw him looking down, his expression pained yet peaceful. Dad, she said softly, do you ever think she forgave you? For moving on? For still being here? Michael's voice broke. Every day. I talk to her sometimes. I tell her I'm sorry. Lily stepped closer, placing her hand over his. Then maybe she heard you. And maybe she sent me back to make sure you forgave yourself too. He stared at her, eyes wet. You really think she'd do that? I know she would. The breeze moved gently through the garden, rustling the flowers like a whisper. For the first time, Michael let the tears fall without shame. He didn't hide them. Lily reached out and hugged him again, tighter this time, not out of pain, but peace. Be honest. Could you forgive after what they did? Type forgive if you could, or never if it would break you too deeply. Days turned into weeks, and the mansion that once echoed with silence began to breathe again. Lily filled its holes with life. Her laughter, her footsteps, the clinking of dishes as she tried to cook breakfast in a kitchen that had long been too quiet. Michael often stood by the doorway, smiling to himself as he watched her hum softly, sometimes burning the toast but always laughing about it. He had never realized how hollow his home had been until she returned. The portraits on the walls no longer felt like reminders of loss. They felt like family again. One evening, Michael sat on the patio reading when Lily came out holding a small, worn photo. I found this, she said, sitting beside him. It was an old picture of him and Grace, standing in front of the same house, both laughing as they held a tiny child between them. Lily. Her thumb brushed over her mother's face. She was so beautiful, Lily whispered. Michael smiled faintly. She was. You have her heart. They sat in silence for a moment, listening to the faint song of crickets in the garden. The air smelled of jasmine and summer. Lily leaned her head against his shoulder. You know, for so long, I thought I was just someone's mistake. Like I wasn't meant to exist. He turned to her quickly. Don't ever say that. You were never a mistake. You were the best part of both of us. Her eyes welled up. Then why do people like us have to go through so much pain just to find love again? He sighed deeply. Maybe pain isn't punishment, Lily. Maybe it's what keeps love real. It makes us hold tighter when we finally get it back. Her lips trembled into a smile. You sound like Mom again. That night, they decided to visit the old cemetery together. Michael hadn't been there in years. The thought of facing Grace's grave always told something inside him, but this time, he felt ready. The drive was quiet, the world outside tinted gold by the setting sun. When they arrived, Lily carried a small bouquet of wildflowers, the same kind her mother used to love. They walked hand in hand until they reached a marble stone etched with Grace's name. Michael knelt down slowly. His fingers brushed against the cold surface. Hi, Grace, he said softly. I brought someone with me. Lily placed the flowers gently at the base. Hi, Mom, she whispered. I don't remember your voice, but I feel you. Every time I laugh, every time I see something beautiful, it feels like you're there. Michael's voice cracked as he added, We found each other again, Grace. I don't know how. Maybe you helped us. But she's home now. A soft breeze swept through the graveyard, carrying the faint scent of roses. Lily smiled through tears. Did you feel that? He nodded. She's listening. They stayed there for a long time, watching the sun fade behind the trees. Michael finally stood and said, Come on, let's go home. On the way back, the city lights flickered to life, glowing like distant stars. Lily looked out the window, her reflection overlapping with the night. She thought about how strange life was, how a single door opening had changed everything. When they reached home, she turned to him and said, "Dad, I want to help people like me. The ones who have no one. Maybe open a shelter or something. Somewhere they can feel safe." Michael's face lit up with pride. "That's a beautiful idea. I'll help you. We'll do it together." She smiled, the kind of smile that carried light even into dark places. Then maybe everything that happened for a reason. Michael looked at her, eyes soft with love. Maybe it did. Maybe we both had to be broken first, so we'd understand how to heal others. They stood by the window that night, watching the moon rise above the city. Two hearts, once lost in different worlds, now quietly at peace under the same sky. Weeks turned into months, and the mansion that once carried the weight of grief began to hum with new life. Every corner whispered stories of healing. The kitchen filled with the smell of warm bread each morning. The garden bloomed again under Lily's care, and laughter returned to rooms that had forgotten what joy sounded like. Lily's dream began to take form, a shelter for the homeless. She named it Grace Haven, after the mother she never truly knew but always felt guiding her. Michael helped her build it, not with money alone, but with heart, meeting the workers, buying furniture, sitting with the people who would call it home. On the opening day, the sky was clear and blue, the kind of day that felt like a blessing. Lily stood on the steps, nervous but radiant, while Michael watched proudly from the crowd. Reporters snapped photos, volunteers clapped, and people from the street slowly walked in, hesitant at first, but smiling when greeted with warmth instead of pity. Lily stepped up to the microphone. "When I was little," she began, her voice trembling slightly, "I used to think the world had no place for people like me. But one night, someone opened a door, and my whole life changed. This shelter isn't just a roof. It's a reminder that sometimes one small act of kindness can rewrite an entire story." Michael's eyes brimmed with tears. He wasn't just proud, he was redeemed. The man who once closed himself off from the world had now helped open doors for others. After the ceremony, Lily and Michael stood outside, watching people settle into their new rooms. A young boy, maybe 9 or 10, ran up to Lily with a small smile. "Miss Lily," he said shyly, "thank you for the food. It's been so long since I wasn't hungry." Lily knelt down, her voice tender. "You're welcome, sweetheart. You're safe now, okay?" The boy nodded and ran off. She watched him disappear through the hallway and felt her eyes well up. Michael rested a hand on her shoulder. "That's your mother's heart in you," he whispered. Lily smiled through her tears. "No, Dad, that's yours too." As they drove home that night, the sun dipped low, painting the sky in hues of gold and crimson. Lily leaned against the window, the city lights flickering past like memories in motion. "Do you think Mom will be proud of us?" she asked quietly. Michael looked out at the horizon. "She always was," he said softly, "even when we couldn't see it." The car rolled to a stop in front of the mansion. Michael turned off the engine, and for a moment, they just sat there, two souls who had wandered through pain, loss, and forgiveness to find their way home again. Lily turned to him with a gentle smile. "You know what I realized, Dad?" "What's that?" "That sometimes the richest people aren't the ones with the biggest houses, but the ones who finally find their missing pieces." Michael nodded slowly, his voice breaking into a whisper. "And I found mine the night you knocked on my door." They stepped out into the quiet evening. The garden shimmered under soft moonlight, the flowers swaying as if dancing to a song only love could hear. Lily took a deep breath of the cool air, her heart full. For the first time, she didn't feel like the poor girl who had begged for bread. She felt like someone who had been given a second chance, and who now existed to give others the same. Before heading inside, Michael looked up at the sky. "Thank you," he murmured, as though speaking to the stars, to grace, to fate itself. Lily followed his gaze and whispered, "Thank you too, Mom, for leading me home." And somewhere in that soft silence between wind and moonlight, it felt like the universe whispered back, "You were never really lost." If this story moved you, don't scroll past quietly. Tap like, not for me, but for the soul who carried this pain and still stayed kind. One click can be your way of saying, "I felt you,